I assume you can't name names at this particular time, but...
Not if people haven't been apprehended yet.
Right, okay. Are senators involved? U.S. senators?
Well,
and congressmen, do you suppose?
Let me give you some information here. Now, this is stuff that has come out of newspaper clippings. It has gotten far enough to get in the newspaper, even if it hasn't been followed up. This was potentially the biggest case of all.
That the one in New Orleans?
Yes, a New Orleans Boy Scout troop was busted for actually being a call boy ring of boy prostitutes. The man who was the leader of the Boy Scout troop was given 75 years in prison, and then he offered to tell a story. The story he told was that the congressional delegations from 2 states, one of which was Louisiana and one of which bordered Louisiana, and, as he put it, the entire hierarchy of one of the states, as far as top political posts, were all involved as customers of the little boys. And he said he was willing to name all the names. That was a UPI story of 26 November 1979, and he never talked again.
Is he in jail now? Is he in
He's
prison?
still in jail. He said there was 1 U.S. senator and many congressmen.
Weren't there a couple actually right-wing, new right representatives, congressmen in Washington,
Bauman,
who were actually
well,
found guilty of molesting?
Doug, I wish you were right.
Yeah.
Congressman Robert Bauman was apprehended in February of 1980 having sex with a 16-year-old boy. For some reason, no charges were brought until September 1980. At that point, the FBI and the U.S. Attorney made an agreement to keep all details of the account out of public records. The charges were dropped on Bauman's promise that he would take a drug or an alcoholic abuse treatment program. He continued in office and he ran for re-election. He was defeated, but he said he would go on to run again. William F. Buckley is one of his closest friends. They were co-founders of Young Americans for Freedom and the American Conservative Union. The way Buckley put it was this: it transpires that during alcoholic bouts he engages in homosexual acts. He went on to say there was a complaint filed by a 16-year-old boy. And then he went on to say Bauman should resign from Congress and resign from the positions in conservative organizations because he was an embarrassment. Bauman never went to trial. He didn't actually go to a formal pretrial hearing either. Then there was Texas Congressman Wyatt, who was caught, well, actually, I take it back. He was not caught. A juvenile reported that Wyatt had forced sex on him. Charges were never filed. That's a quote. Charges were never filed, despite the fact that the boy had filed a complaint. And Wyatt said he was going to run again. When it was published in the Austin paper that the complaint was not that he was drunk driving, but that he had forced sex on a juvenile male, he said he wouldn't run again. He was already in the alcohol rehabilitation program, so there was no trial, no pretrial hearing, no charges.
Wasn't there another ring of tour guides, boys as tour guides for congressmen?
Well, that you may be referring to the case of Representative Hinson, a Republican from Mississippi, who was found having sex with somebody in the men's room of the Longworth House office building. There are conflicting accounts. According to one account, he was having sex with a minor. According to another account, he was having sex with an adult. He said he was innocent, and he agreed to undergo alcohol abuse treatment, and he was not charged.
Well, there was some
the charges were dropped.
Well, what was the story about the young boys being tour guides for the Capitol? And this was also part of a little boy sex ring, and also some of it resulted in campaign contributions. I read that in an article.
That has to do with the state of Texas, as a matter of fact.
Texas.
And here's the way we can tell that story.
This is one you can't tell.
Well, this is one we can. It got into the newspaper.
Yeah, I saw it in the newspaper.
But then it disappeared.
Oh.
what appeared in the newspaper was a boys' home run by a Texas state representative was being investigated for charge of abuse of the boys. The state representative said that there was no abuse. He claimed that his place could not be investigated by the state because it was private, like that of Reverend Roloff. The story died and didn't appear in the press anymore. The lead that produced the initial story was that that representative took campaign contributions, and then the contributors, as a reward, got to have sex with the boys in the home. And that he did this for more than himself, but for other representatives. That man is out of the state legislature.
So we've talked about legislators, congressmen,
A senator.
senators, people in the highest ranks of government at the state level. Now, are these just aberrations, or is this part of a widespread ongoing thing?
I think it's very widespread. And not just among powerful politicians. We've talked about politicians. But it seems to be the case that in all high-powered professions,
Corporations now we're talking about too.
Corporations, medicine, law, even the university, not necessarily professions with bloated salaries, but prestige, some power, influence, and above all, pressure. The men involved are susceptible to this kind of deviation.
I'm working right now, like just, with the corporation. And
what's that? How's that work?
well, when their executives or, their business people are in town, they're sent to our apartment and we entertain them while they're here.
Okay, what's that entertainment usually involve? What do they usually demand, or what do they want?
Well, it's all kinds of sex and perversions. There's no two alike. I've decided that. Everyone's in for something different, so I can't really stereotype the whole, situation.
All the men want different things?
Yeah, right. But we're usually in the passive side, and they're usually the dominant player.
He was a real old man,
How old a man?
like about in his 60s, 70s.
What does he do at Grady Hospital?
He's one of them people that operates on people.
He's a what?
A doctor.
We've talked about those men who have achieved power, and also among those men who wanted it but didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Men like poor Gacy in Chicago, who killed at least 33 boys. He was not a well-to-do man, but he was a joiner. He paid high dues to join men's clubs. He paid $1,000 to join the President's Club so he could have dinner with Jimmy Carter. Instead, he had dinner with Mrs. Carter and had his picture taken with her. He was an upward striver. He killed at least 33 boys. He offered in his defense that he could not identify any of the 33 boys by face or by name because he had had sex with 1,500 different boys in the previous 5 years, 300 different kids a year, and most of them, as he said, were prostitutes. He didn't snatch them off the street. He went out and bought their services, and then he coerced them, as this lawyer in Washington says no one ever does. He made them captives and he killed them.
What about women in the positions of power in government? You don't find women involved in this?
Well, you don't find many women involved in positions of power in the American
Maybe that
system.
explains what appears to be the fact. Women don't do this to little girls. Heterosexual women, homosexual women don't do this to little girls.
Or little boys.
Or little boys. I mean, it happens, but it's not common, it's not ordinary, it's not a phenomenon. It isn't a threat. If you have a little girl and you have an adult female friend, you needn't have any apprehension. But if you have little kids who are boys, they are in more danger than the little girls today.